Going in
I was nervous for you. I didn't
the
know
haunted
you were
orphanage.
This building here, we're going into, this is the original orphanage building. Now has changed a bit since the 1860s. You'll notice the second floor to the building. Yes, back then the children and the staff slept in the bedrooms upstairs like most of us do in our homes today. I cannot, however, take you upstairs to those floors because they have been turned into private residences. There are apartments up there. There are people that actually live in this building with the ghosts. Imagine what those nights would be like trying to sleep up there. Would you want to live in a haunted house? No? Me either. All right. Tall people, watch your head right here. Be very careful going down these stairs.
Bryce, watch your head.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
So, here we are.
I wish you would.
I don't like this. I know how to make it better. There we go.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone can see me? No?
Yes.
No? Good. All right, guys. So, on this tour, as I said in the gift shop over across the street, most of the time you can expect almost anything to happen. We've had groups by ourselves go through these buildings, and you're sitting here listening to me tell stories, tell a little bit about the history of this place, and all of a sudden you think there's something moving around behind you. You turn around, what do you see? She's not going to look now. The tour hasn't even started. She's already scared. No, there's nothing but a black curtain, right? There's a curtain there. But what if there's something shuffling around over there? Or what if you all of a sudden hear a child whimpering or footsteps above your head on the floorboards where we just came from in the hallway? Could be anything happening. So be on full alert. You catch things with your devices, your cameras, your cell phone cameras, all that good stuff. We've had evidence, so much evidence to look at over the years. When it comes to the orphanage and this building, a lot of people talk about how dark, how scary this place is, especially after hours when no one else is here. We are starting tonight's adventure here in the cellar, which is the site of some of the most torturous, heinous crimes that not just man or woman has ever seen or heard of, but most of these crimes happen to the children of the orphanage. If you're familiar with the history of this place, like many places in this town, it has a good history and a bad history. The orphanage came about in 1866 after the Battle of Gettysburg. Children, their fathers were off fighting in the war, dying in the war. And when the families at home couldn't take care of these kids, some families big as ever with so many kids, they were forced to financially give up some of these children to orphanages just like this. A lot of the local children in Pennsylvania came here to stay. The staff, they were great with the kids. They took care of the kids. They clothed them. They fed them. They played with them. They educated them. That all changes by the fall of 1868. Up until that point, many different caretakers have gone through this place. The fall of 1868, a woman shows up here, taking the role of head mistress. Her name is Rosa Carmichael. We don't know much about Rosa. We think she comes from around the Philadelphia area, and according to the staff that hired her, the executive board, they said she's very good at her skills at disciplining children, keeping them in order. At first, everything was okay. Everything was same as usual around here. But then the stories started to swirl, the rumors started to come out, the gossip, what she was doing to these children who were misbehaving. Take, for instance, many of the young girls that attended here. You go outside, you play, you have your fun. But what happens when you accidentally mess up or rip or tear your pretty little blue dress? Normally, The matrons here that were in charge of fixing the wardrobe, not a problem. A stitch here, a stitch there, almost brand new. But Miss Rosa didn't like that. It was embarrassing. She would force the girls to take off their clothes and put on sets of what would be boys' clothes. Trousers, pants, shirts. And with the likes of Bella Hunter and her young sister, not only did they have to wear boys' clothes, which at the time was embarrassing, but they shaved their heads. They shaved all their beautiful locks right off their head. And she would make the girls stand up on the tables and the desks with their arms up like this all day, stiff as a board, not moving a muscle. If you moved, you'd get smacked with a stick. Other instances, other stories, she would take a child and hang them in barrels like this, douse them in barrels with freezing cold water. But the most terrible is in this room right here. You can't see it probably because it's too dark. But near the back of the room, there's a hallway that leads back to a small little room that the children nicknamed the dungeon. She actually had the nerve to bring the children, when they misbehaved, down these stairs, take them all the way back into the dungeon, and she would chain them up to the stone walls. But it wasn't just back there. It was also right where we're standing. For example, right here, between these two gentlemen, as you can see, hanging from the walls. Now, I will let you in on a little secret. These actual shackles you see here, they're fake. They're not real. But this cord here,
That's real.
that is real. Am I up with my tetanus shots? I don't know. We'll have to see. But those are just some of the most terrible things that she did to these kids for years. And we'll find out. We'll find out if justice ever came to Carosa and her cruel ways when we move on with the tour. But here, today, we're sitting here in this basement where many people have claimed to see and hear and experience the spirits of these children, these poor children still at play, still down here hanging out in this cellar. I've had people on tours before sit on these benches and they're just sitting there and all of a sudden, no draft, no wisp of air or anything, something blows right past their legs. Or they could feel the weight of something sitting right on the bench, right next to them. But they look over and there's nothing here. Except me bumping my head. Now, how many of you are fans of ghost shows like Ghost Hunters, Ghost Adventures? I'm sure you have your favorite show. A lot of those groups have been here over the years, the decades even, doing their investigations in these buildings. You probably have seen some of the episodes on TV of them here in Gettysburg. Local groups come here all the time on the weekends and do their own investigations and catch their own results. And they were setting up one night down here in the cellar of the orphanage. Lights were on and everything. And they had a couple of strange things happen as they were setting up, even before the case started. As they were setting up all their cameras and all their fancy equipment, they had them running on batteries. Well, they noticed that the lights every now and then would cut off. But yes, those devices would still run, and then the lights would come back on. They would feel the temperature change. They would sit or stand in those cold spots that we often hear about with the supernatural. They would have K2s like this one that the gentleman is holding go off from green to red constantly. And some groups, if they're lucky, they would have special guests, psychics, right? People who could see ghosts and things like that. And as they were setting up equipment one night, there was a gentleman right here setting up some cameras, and the psychic that they invited along for the night was standing over here. Now the lights are all on. And the psychic stops, turns around, and looks right into that corner. And she says, "Oh my gosh, nobody move. Nobody do anything drastic. There's a small child right there in the corner." She could see them. But all the other people could see was nothing. Except for the gentleman here setting up the cameras. He said it was getting colder and colder. Well, another member of the group was nearby. And they just had a regular camera that you could snap pictures with. So, when she said that she saw something in the corner, they immediately took up the camera and started taking pictures. And as those pictures came out, they noticed the guy kept saying it was getting colder and colder. Every time he kept saying it was getting colder and colder, every shot, every film, that picture showed nothing but an orb. And that orb was getting closer and closer to where he was. Finally, he said, I can't feel my arm. The picture that was taken at that moment when he said that, the orb was sitting right on his shoulder. And then the next couple shots he took, you could see the orb exiting and going out towards the staircase. But of all my favorite things that have happened in this cellar, one involves one of our past owners. Now, technically this is like a museum. And every museum needs to be cleaned, right? Maintenance, right? Make sure it looks good for people like you to come in and enjoy it. Well, during the off season, the previous owner drew the short straw. He had to clean up the basement. There was garbage everywhere and toys that we wanted to throw out. So he came down one Sunday afternoon. There was nobody else in the building, no tours scheduled. Turned on the lights, came down the cellar, and he went over here by this bench, and he started cleaning up all the garbage. I mean, he really got into the mess. He was down on his hands and knees, reaching underneath, grabbing old water bottles and trash and other things like that. When he was under that bench, all of a sudden, the lights went out. When the lights went out, like me, he bumped his head on the bottom of the table. And he said, wait a minute, that can't be right. How can you have the power just cut out all by itself? Well, it could happen. It's an old building. Maybe the wire is faulty. Who knows? So he gets up and he walks over here. Now, you saw me go over there and turn the lights off via switch. When he went over there to investigate that switch, he realized that if the power had cut out, shouldn't the switch still be in the on position? Right? No. Something physically flipped that switch and moved it in the off position. So he turns the lights back on. They come on just like magic. He goes back to doing his job just like this. And he's cleaning around the corners of the room, wiping down all the benches. And again, the lights go out. What the heck is going on? So he goes over there, and again, something flipped the switch off. Now he realizes it's not a faulty system. Somebody's playing a trick on him, goofing around. So he turns the lights back on. At this point, he only has one last area to go into, one last area to clean up. And it's back in the dungeon. He goes over to the dungeon door. Back here. And he opens it up. Just like that. He goes all the way back down the hallway and he gets right to the end where the entrance to the dungeon is. It's a small little entrance. It's hard to get into. He crawls into that hole and he starts packing up the trash bag with whatever garbage he can find back up there. And again, the lights go out. Except this time, something else happens. Moments after those lights go out, the next thing he hears is that door slam shut. Being an old door in an old building, there's a good chance it gets stuck. And it scares him a little bit, makes him concerned. He could be stuck back there. He's now back there in the dark, in the dungeon, one of the most terrible places in the world. And now, he finds his courage. He crawls out into the hallway, comes back to the door, gives it a good bang, and the door, of course, isn't stuck. It comes right back open. He comes out, looks right over at the light switch. Again, that little trickster turned it off. He flicks the switch, turns the lights back on, runs over to the table, grabs his cleaning supplies, and he hightails it right up the stairs and out the building. He never comes back to clean this place up again. Every year, they would try to find someone else to do the dirty job for them. And guess who has not cleaned up the building yet?
Yeah.
This guy. Even though there have been nights I've been in this building by myself in the dark, and yes, it can be creepy with whoever's in here at the time. Now, the dungeon lies back there. In a moment, I'm going to take you guys back there to see what it's like, see in the dark. what these poor kids had to go through being chained up back there. During investigations and tours alike, people have said they've seen shadows back there moving around, cold spots. And when you get back there, sometimes it changes you emotionally. You all seem like happy-go-lucky people right now. But you go back there, and I've had people start bursting into tears for no reason, crying. They feel very emotional. And then when they come back out here into the main cellar or even upstairs, they feel normal. They feel fine again. Paranormal energy can sometimes do that to you. It can change you, just like that in a moment. So as we look around here, I see we have a pretty big group. So what we're going to do is we're going to split it into two. I'm going to take one group back. We're going to see the dungeon. The rest of you, while you're out here, you're more than welcome to take pictures, get what you can here in the dark, and then we're going to switch, and group 2 is going to go back. Okay? So how about this? Everybody on this side from you to, let's say, you guys. Why don't you come on back? I'll show you the dungeon. And of course, you can take pictures back here as well. Leave our friends in the dark.
Glenn will go first. I'll go first.
Watch your head and watch this first step here when you come back here.
No, watch this first step. It's
Okay.
right here. Could you see it?
Yeah.
You go first.
Do you want me to turn my cell phone light on?
Nah.
These other tour.
The stories are still to be told. So guys, if you look in here, this is the dungeon where she would put the kids. You guys seem small enough. You might be able to crawl in there.
Go ahead. Bryce, you're good.
No, rather
If
not.
you hear anything,
If you don't want to go in there, you could just pop your head in there. It doesn't go too far
Liv will
back.
go
So
in.
I see the footsteps and stuff, so I don't know.
there's other people that
Can I turn my
climb in there.
flashlight on?
You can if you need to see better.
Watch out. Oh, there's a bear. That's there's a bear.
Once you see all you want to see, you're more than welcome to head on back
Go
to
ahead
the
in,
basement.
Bryce.
We'll get everyone else up here.
Holy crap, there's a doll. Come out of here. Can I see it?
Yep,
creepy
go
Can I have
ahead.
your flashlight?
Yeah, go ahead.
Right there. Gotta look. Oh, I see it. Is it red doll?
All right, we
Oh,
got.
that's a Raggedy Ann doll. Oh, that's... There's batteries and stuff.
Okay, other people are waiting.
Okay. I'm out. Peace.
Meeting him.
Yeah, definitely. Man.
What was pitch? What, the door shut?
No.
Why was he so
Watch your step. There's no lights are.
Taking me, Olivia. If I was the only one to say it's scary, but if everybody else said it's scary, she would be the only one to judge me. I'd be the only one to get judged. Yo, wait. Why do I feel like I just saw something? Like behind that curtain over there, I thought I saw like a head pop out. And then the curtain got pulled back a little bit, gonna like just disappear.
I'll have to look at the video. Maybe you did see something.
I'm not, it might have just been like mess in the face.
What? We sent him to the dungeon.
Seems appropriate.
The dungeon is calling Bryce and Olivia. Dun, 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 dun. Will they come back? We don't know. They might come back changed people. Like Moses in the Ten Commandments. Bryce will come back with a big beard, gray hair.
Flash does make it difficult to tell where steps and such are.
Oh, my flasher.
Well, it's kind of strobing because it's
Oh, I'm
going
sorry.
so fast.
Oh,
so
I'm
it's like,
sorry.
oh, sorry.
Sorry about that.
All right, so here's your music. All right, let's make everybody feel comfortable again by raising their lights. Strobe light going. All right, so of course we got probably what I consider the scariest part over first. We're down in the cellar, previous part of the building. We saw the dungeon. The story of the orphanage is not over. I've already told you about Rosa, but I've already had a million questions about what happened to Rosa. Did she ever face what she did to these children, the consequences? And she does. But we're going to get into that when we head up to the next part of the tour. We're going to head up the stairs. There is a nice little museum part we're going to pass through if you want to take a quick glance at some of the exhibits. But the next stop is we're going to head right into what was the dining hall where the children used to get their meals every day. There's going to be tavern-style tables up there. Take a seat wherever you want. I believe we have enough for everybody to sit at their own table.
We have to be at one table.
Plenty of tables, plenty of room. Through here, and they don't find it scary, especially even with the lights off. But there were times when people would be waiting in the gift shop to go on a tour, and that door would be shut, and they didn't know if there was a tour or not going on back here. They would hear footsteps, they would hear voices, thinking there was a group doing a tour. But if you were to open that door and see nothing but a black room, an empty room, you'd be shocked, you'd be surprised. Many of those voices have been heard in this back part of the building. And one time, something happened back here in this back part of the building. We had a tour called the Ghostly Encounters Tour. They still do them every now and again. Your tour guide would dress up in a costume and play a character from history, while at the same time trying to spook you as they could. Now, it was the end of the season one year, November. Cold, not many crowds in town, everybody goes home for the holidays. One of our tour guides, a big old jolly gentleman by the name of Mr. Joe. Mr. Joe always played the character of James Wade, Jenny Wade's father, across the street at the Jenny Wade house. Some of you might have had him before if you were here. Well, one night, the tour was over, it was late, it was dark out, everybody went home. He finished, locked up the building, and, well, he didn't want to go home dressed in his costume, he wanted to change back into his normal clothes. Well, the only place to do so is right here behind this wall. There's a bathroom. You probably saw it on the way through the hallway. So he comes into the orphanage all by himself. He's heading towards the bathroom to change out of his costume. On the way in, he passes the door that goes down to the cellar. It's open just a bit, but the lights are off. And he hears voices downstairs in the dark. Do you think it's ghosts? No. It's what you guys were doing. There's paranormal investigators down there. There was a group that came in that night to do an investigation of the orphanage. Well, he didn't want to disrupt them, so he sneaks into the bathroom and he shuts the door quietly. He starts changing out of his outfit. Now, he's in there for about 15, 20 minutes getting ready for the night to leave. At this point, the investigation is over. The guys all left, leaving Mr. Joe truly alone in the building. Well, he's in the bathroom, still thinks the group's downstairs. He's almost done in the bathroom, and all of a sudden, he starts hearing footsteps right outside the door in the hallway, moving around, pacing around. And then he looks down, and he sees the door handle start to jiggle. Well, he thinks one of these investigators came upstairs, had to use the bathroom. So he calls out right on the other side of the door. He says, hey, hold on a minute. Occupied, I'll be right out. Just give me a second. Nothing. The door handle continues to jiggle. And now the door starts to slam hard. And he's thinking, man, they really have to go to the bathroom. Hey, give me a second, man. I said I'm coming out. Nothing. The door is still going. They're really trying to bust their way in. He finally gets angry and he says, hey, hold on. And he reaches down and he turns that handle and throws the door open. Nobody's on the other side. Nobody. He goes over to the cellar where they were at. That door is shut and locked. He's all by himself. Who the heck was trying to get into the bathroom? Well, see, the ghosts here in this building know, I think, when the tour season starts and when the tour season ends. He, or they, I should say, know when there are people coming into the building, whether it's just one tour guide or a whole group or two. And they know when that season starts up again at the beginning of the year, right? Just like now, when to come out and play. The following season, late March. The tour season started. And it was an orphan tour, similar to this. It was nice out. And one of the tour guides, who's no longer here, retired a long time ago, a woman named Miss Jean, she had a group just like you guys, and she had just finished the outside portion, going around the neighborhood. And they came into the orphanage, and the first stop was right here in the dining hall. Everybody took their seats at the tables. Lights on, just like this. And she stood over here by the gift shop door, telling stories, telling history of the place. The gift shop was hopping. People were coming in through the front door, signing up for later tours. There was a huge crowd in there. Imagine their surprise when the next thing they hear on the other side of this door, here in this room, is Miss Jean let out the most blood-curdling scream you've ever heard. And everybody in the shop thought, that's the tour guide having their fun with the tour group. But she didn't stop. She kept screaming. And then she said something out loud that you would never hear a tour guide say on a tour. Help us, please! Come in, please! The young lady running the desk was concerned. She was scared. She never experienced anything like that. She comes barreling across the gift shop floor. She opens up this door, and at the time, she couldn't believe her eyes. The tables you sit at now, these little tables, they weren't here. Instead, we had 2 long tables from wall to wall, just like this. Everybody that was sitting at those tables, they were all now on one side of the room. Some of which sitting in their laps. Something spooked them real good. And the girl was looking all over the place for Miss Jean, wondering where she had gone. Where's the tour guide to control this madness? She looked down, and she saw Miss Jean in the corner like this, hiding. Pale as ever, sweat running down her face, whimpering like a little girl. They sat her down, they calmed her down. It wasn't until after the tour that they found out what really happened. When she had everybody in here telling stories, having a good time, she's standing over here, and all of a sudden, at a break in the storytelling, right here at this door, this dark, shadowy shape just came through in front of everybody and walked right across the floor just like this. And when it hit this door over here, on the far side of the room, it just disappeared just like that, scaring everybody half to death. She stayed on for another couple of years as a tour guide. She loved the job, just like most of us do. But that is one night, one story she will never forget to the end of her days. And it's one of my favorite stories involving another guide, besides me, that has had an encounter here in the orphanage. Now, with that being said, before we head on, do any of you have any questions whatsoever? Yes?
What was your scariest encounter?
Ooh, well, in here?
That's a good question. I was wondering.
That is a good question. Well, we'll tell you this one story and then we'll head on to the next stop. One night, me and a friend who was another tour guide, we had just completed our late night tour. If you're not familiar with the late night tour, it's when we have 2 guides with 2 groups, just like tonight. One does the Jenny Wade house, one does the orphanage. And then after about 45 minutes, we switch. The fun fact about this whole tour, everything is done in the dark. The only light you get is the lantern and that's it. And our stories tend to be a little scarier, a little darker. But one night we finished the tour. Having a little bit of fun there.
Yeah, they're having a lot of fun.
One night we finished the tour. I finished down at the Jenny Wade. My co-worker finished right up here at the orphanage. We said our goodbyes to everybody. Hope they had a good time. They all left. I locked up the building for the night and I came up here to the orphanage. And I normally don't do that. Usually I get in my car and just go. But my friend waved me over. He came over and he said, "You're not going to believe what just happened." We were down in the basement at the orphanage. I had the lights out. I was telling stories. When I got quiet, all of a sudden, up here in the hall where we came in, he heard footsteps going back and forth. He got so scared, he actually left his tour group down in the basement by themselves. And he went up to investigate and found nobody. Came in, finished the tour, they all left. As we're standing out there on the porch, the front porch of the ramp, we had all these doors open so we could see clear back here to the back with the lights on. And we're standing there talking and I said, "Eric, well, it's getting late. It's time to lock up. I'll help you get all the lights and everything." At that moment, the next thing we hear at 1 in the morning, this whistle out of nowhere. We looked around, it was a ghost town. There was nobody out there. There was nobody in the building. The whistle had come from inside the building, right back here. We came all the way to the back to investigate. Nobody was playing a trick on us, not even Tom. And then that moment, as we're standing back here, we hear this loud bang come from downstairs. We went downstairs. Nothing was out of place, no benches or anything. But we did find somebody's cell phone down there. We got the cell phone. We came back up to the front porch. And we said, well, I guess this one's going to have to go in the lost and found for tomorrow. Maybe they'll come back. At that moment we said that, a young gentleman and his family came around the corner of the village up here, the hotel. He was just on the tour and he lost his phone. Did we see it? Yeah, here it is. But you're not going to believe how we found it. Ever since that night, we believed we had a little bit of help from the ghosts in this building, letting us know, hey, this guy forgot something. You might want to come and investigate. But let me tell you, when you hear that whistle and that slam of something downstairs, do you think we really wanted to check it out? No, at 2 in the morning? No. So, but that's just one of the scary stories I could tell you. Most of my experiences happen over at the Jenny Wade house because I've done that tour longer and they know me. So they like me. So with that being said, for the final leg of the tour, we're going to head through that door and we are going to go to the back room and finish our storytelling back there. It looks like a church, I know. As you take your seats and you look around the rooms, these are the actual photographs from the orphanage back in its heyday. You can see many of the shots with children out playing in the yards, the streets, what they used to look like. Now, people have asked, oh, is this a church? Is this part of the original orphanage? I'm sorry to disappoint you, no, it's not. This room isn't even that old. This was built in the early 50s as an extension to the original building. We sometimes use this for special events, special tours, and as of now with the orphanage, we now bring our people back here on regular walking tours as part of the program. But as you can see the history telling you in these photographs and these passages about the various chapters of the history of the orphanage, good and bad. And the orphanage, of course, is well known for Rosa and what she did to these children. But whatever happened to Rosa? Was she ever caught? In short, yes. Christmas, December. Gentlemen were walking from the Christmas party up in town. They were coming down to this neighborhood. And they heard the screams, the cries of a small child somewhere out in the backyard. Now back then in the backyard, one of the things that we used to have were outhouses. And they discovered this poor little boy was locked away in an outhouse. Who did it? Miss Rosa. Miss Rosa and possible minions that she had under her wing. They locked that poor child in there. That child looked like it hadn't had any water or food for almost days. The clothes were tattered and dirty. When they set him free, it wasn't long before the stories started coming out of the woodwork about how Miss Rosa would mistreat all the children in this building. What was really going on behind these closed doors of the orphanage that the public did not see or hear about. She was taken to court. She was taken to court for neglect, abuse, even aggravated assault. And she was fined. She was acquitted. She was acquitted. She paid one little fine, most of which were legal fees. Not enough evidence, not enough accounts, no witnesses, just barely a couple. You gonna believe that? But then she was caught again and again, and finally, basically, in the end of it, the reputation of this place had declined. Some say one of the founders was skimming money. Donations that were given to this place for the children, for their well-care. Bankruptcy, corruption, and just pretty much everything dealing with Rosa sunk this place down. Rosa was forced to leave this area. We don't know what happened to her. We don't have much. The only mentionings of Rosa and what went on here are in the court documents up at the courthouse in the archives about her trials. That's it. Not long after, the sheriff would come in, have an estate sale, sell everything. Then, for a while, It was a residence again, and then in the 50s and 60s, it became a museum. And here you guys are today, tonight, sitting here in these very halls, or what's left of the halls, I should say. Now, remember what I said about the memories of these children. They're not just preserved through your history books and your online databases, or even Wikipedia. Their spirits still linger here tonight in these halls. Some of you have gotten some lucky hits on your K2s, maybe on your cameras as you were taking pictures of orbs and mists and stuff. They're here watching us right now, whether the lights are on or off. They're also down there with Miss Maria's group, enjoying their fun with them as well. Both good and bad. I believe someone ever asked me, did anyone ever get hurt here in the orphanage? With the records and what happened here with Miss Rosa, there has been a record of one death. A young boy came down with a stomach illness. Stomach illness. They had the means to cure him. They had the medicine from Philadelphia, the right tonic, but he died because he was not cured. Who do you think decided not to cure him? Rosa. And odd enough, wouldn't you know, that story circulated for years in the histories. And a couple summers ago, on a tour, a young man, just like yourselves, was down in the basement. And as he was going back to the dungeon, he was passing the stone walls and he looked over and he saw the reflection of something shiny. He pulled it out. And it was an old glass bottle. An empty bottle. At first we didn't recognize the markings on the bottle, but we looked it up on the internet. And it was around the time period of when the orphanage was. It came from Philadelphia, an apothecary. Do you know what that bottle held?
The medicine?
The same medicine that would be used to cause or to cure a stomach illness. Start to connect the dots a bit, right? Someone's trying to hide something? Well, not saying it's the medicine or the bottle from the history, but it is something interesting to think about. Going back to the ghosts and the spirits of this place. Now is when things get really dark. You remember when I said we've had psychics in here, and visions, things like that? We wanted to test the waters a bit, so we invited up near the Halloween season some psychics and people who had that gift. And on 2 separate occasions, people would come on the tours and pull the tour guides off to the side to see, what they could hear, things like that. We had a psychic from the Philadelphia area, and we had a psychic just down the road from York, a young gentleman. And during the tour, their stories were very similar. They each had on their own tours a similar vision. They would actually see a young man, overalls, old style clothing, come up the steps from the basement. One hand, he had a shovel. In the other hand, a bundle of some sort in his hand. And they would see the same thing. They would see this man walk through the dining hall where we were just at. They would see the man start to walk down the steps and then just disappear. They never saw the finished image, but they did notice, both accounts, both stories, this young man was walking towards the back of the room. This is what's strange. If you look at the layout of history, this was built in the 1950s, right? Where I'm standing used to be the back kitchen to the orphanage. Where you're all at right now, you're actually in the backyard. An orchard, stables, some gardens, a well. Why would there be a young man coming here with a shovel, something in his arm? Does anybody want to take a guess what that might be, that little bundle? I feel like I don't want to ask. I feel like you're going to nail it.
He buried the kid in the backyard.
Buried the kid.
Oh, she is so gruesome.
Does this look like a
No,
kid?
no, it's his poop.
It's his kind of body. That's my guess.
No more late night horror movies for you. You know the answer, right?
Probably.
Have you heard this story before? No.
Maybe some like soil to.
No. He's thinking agriculturally. That's good. Plant a tree, right? Save the earth. All right. Let's see.
Wait, can I get a guess real quick?
You want to guess? Okay. This is gonna be weird because you're too young, but okay.
Maybe like a doll that looks like someone that he didn't like from the orphanage.
You're on the right track.
Like a doll of someone like that he didn't like, that boy or something.
You're the parents, right?
Grandparents.
Grandparents?
But thank you for thinking parents.
I would ask for permission to tell this story, but I don't want them to keep you up at night.
No, they won't.
Okay. The story goes, the psychic saw this boy with a shovel and a bundle in his arm. This is where things get a little scandalous. At the time of the orphanage, think about it. All these boys and girls, different ages, and I do mean different ages. A young girl who was not even 14, 15 years old found herself pregnant. Just like today, that's a big scandal. We don't know who or what or where or how. She was a young orphan. She found herself pregnant. Now, Miss Rosa would not have this. Could you imagine the publicity of this? Oh my gosh, an orphan finding themselves with child. It came time for the mother to give birth. You can't do it up here on the property. You can't do it in public eye. She took the woman down to the basement. The mother gave birth. The mother only held that child, her child, for a few seconds. One of the psychics said that when they saw this boy, the spirit of this boy walking around, coming from the basement, they could also detect the voice of someone cruel, someone mean, saying, "I don't care, get rid of it." The mother held the child for a few seconds. The psychics see the exact same image. Maybe even today, if they were to come here and have a vision. The young man making his way through the orphanage with the bundle and a shovel.
So it was a kid. Yeah.
Coming down the stairs, heading to the backyard. And that's it.
Well, I know who dug the baby.
I think I just revealed it.
He just said it, but Liv said
He
it.
might have slaughtered his head off.
They didn't have
So
no
you
heads.
see, the
No
orphanage
heads had
has
to be
its fair
dismembered.
share of dark stories as well. Some that we don't like to tell a lot on tours, especially with the young ones around. We don't like to give them the creeps. But that it has its fair share of dark history here in the orphanage. You know that she's a cruel woman. You read some of the accounts, she would probably deny it, say that none of it's true. She's not capable of any of that stuff. But why'd she disappear so fast? She had to be guilty of something. But just remember, where there were bad times, there were good times as well, too.
Okay, what do you guys think of the ghostly, what was it, ghostly images of Gettysburg?
I liked it. Kendall said she felt like a breeze, and then he started talking about the breeze that Tom would do, and we just like looked at each other. Did you see us look at each other? We were like, oh my god. And then when we were in the dining room, I don't know, like I heard heard a whistle, but I think that was just the other group. Oh, it just turned dark. And then when we were in the dining room, I know you guys are gonna say that I was lying, but I felt something playing with my hair.
No, I believe it.
Going through it and like kind of just like seeing what it was all about.
Right.
And it was like they were playing with my hair.
Yeah, because Bryce looked at me the one time like, I feel like Bryce felt
And my
something
fingers
because you
started
looked at
hurting.
me like you were pale white for somebody
Yeah.
so tan. So did something happen to you in the dining room? I knew it.
Yeah.
I knew it.
I had my hand on the table,
Mhm.
and just I felt like it's almost like someone well, I shouldn't say that, it was actually my leg,
Yeah.
and it felt like someone was crawling under the table.
Ugh.
A ghost was crawling, and
Right.
because something went under my leg.
Yeah, I had a
He
huge
looked at me,
headache
he
in
was
there.
pure white. Pure white.
I have a huge headache.
Yeah. Kendall, anything? You did.
That guy yelled.
Tell your experience.
That was kind of like.
When we were down in the cellar part,
Mhm.
when everyone was in the dungeon, I was sitting on the bench and I felt a cold breeze past me.
Wow. I didn't feel anything, but I think it's because it's kids.
Yeah.
But when I was taking pictures, then when I was looking at them, there's a picture that I gotta show you that has a weird mark on it.
Oh yeah, I was saying when I was taking the pictures, I saw them. I was looking through the camera and I saw
Really
them, but then when I
cool.
took a picture, it wasn't there.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
What do you
orb.
think?
How much
Besides
was
the
it?
fact that it was so sad.
Really interesting.
15 a person.
$15 a person. Man, it was
Interesting but sad.
yeah,
It was
yeah.
sad.
It's
It was very sad.
sad that kids would have to go through
Right.
Yeah, we
that.
did. And it kind of reminds me of like the Matilda thing at
Yeah.
their school, but it was less like Matilda funny. Like
Yeah, we definitely recommend it if you're going to Gettysburg. That's one tour you should do.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say the Anne Frank house, but I meant genuinely. I keep on.
All right, we're closing out our Gettysburg trip. What was everybody's favorite?
The museum was definitely my favorite.
The orphanage one?
Museum.
Oh, haunted objects?
Haunted
Even
objects.
better than the orphanage. Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, that's because she was the star of the show. Showed up the tour guide.
I liked the orphanage.
Like seeing where they kept the little kids in the dungeon.
It's gonna be you one day.
We gotta figure out that practice.
I liked the orphanage because I liked the story how he told like where Tommy had like the shovel and the baby,
Bryce loves Tommy.
and he had like the baby, and no one else was doing it.
Right. I liked the orphanage, but it was extremely sad. So it was none of these awful children found that it was sad that there were babies being tortured, but I did. But I liked the orphanage, and I liked Tommy's pizza, and I liked the whole trip. This campground is fantastic.
I liked what else I liked is how close we are like to the stuff,
Oh yeah.
like the mini golf and the cornhole and the pool.
Right. Right. The campground is nice.
Yeah, we're in site 41.
Oh,
They
perfect.
said the laundry is right there with bathrooms. You saw the mini golf and beanbag toss
Oh, and
games.
the dog park's down there.
And the dog park's close by. If we had horses, the horse stable is close by. Yeah, it's a great campground. The battery's gonna die real soon. So I'll continue this after I get a fresh battery.
Maybe Kennedy will be around.
Okay, I'm back. I don't remember where I left off.
We're like
The campground. Yeah, great. Definitely recommend coming. I'd come back here. Although
too.
I like to try different ones, but I would definitely come back to this. And
Yeah, you come back.
my favorite part would probably be the orphanage, just from the history of the building and everything. Although the museum, Olivia impressed me with her freaky knowledge of the beyond and everything. But other than that, I was really hoping for an auto tour of the place, but only Glam and I wanted to do that, so we'll have to come back and do that ourselves. All right, that's it. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you
Bye.
next time.
Bye.